Good evening, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, staff. I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting for the Town of Pelham Committee of the Whole to order. It's been moved by Councillor Junkin that the agenda for the June 6, 2016 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted. Are there any changes to the agenda? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to add an item under new business, and that would be a discussion and possible motion with respect to the change in name of E.W. Farr School. Had some concerns brought forward to me by members of the community, and I didn't know whether council had a role in that we might play.
Thank you. Councillor, I'm going to rule that not in order.
Okay.
That it's ultra vires. It's not our concern, and that those that are concerned about the naming of that should speak to the school board.
Except, Mr. Mayor, may I speak to that?
Yes.
I would challenge your decision, Mr. Mayor, because I think E.W. Farr, the name E.W. Farr does have, in fact, some historic relevance in our community, given the history of him as an educator. And it may be something that we as council would have some concern about, losing the reference to this historic educator and a very important individual in our community. So that's why I raised that. I realize that it is out of our order, out of our venue to make a motion that would have no effect, other than perhaps to write a letter suggesting to the school board that E.W. Farr does in fact have a historic relevance in our community and is important to our community, and could they please reconsider. We often do that in a number of things that are ultra vires because we feel that they are important. So that's why I raise it, Mr. Mayor, and why I challenge your ruling.
Okay, so it's a formal challenge to my ruling?
Well,
that's fine, you can challenge the ruling.
I think so.
Okay, Madam Clerk, Councillor has challenged my ruling that this is ultra vires. The reason I ruled, as I stated, so ultra vires is Latin for out of our jurisdiction. This is something that's been proposed by the school board, one of 4 school boards that cover Niagara. I don't see it as our jurisdiction. We don't have any control over it. And we don't have the information that's before us. So that's why I'm ruling that it shouldn't be added, it's not in order to be added to our agenda. And I would ask the clerk to undertake a vote for members of council for that. Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as council is aware, when a ruling of the chair is challenged, the ruling goes to the membership. So I will call for a recorded vote.
So all those in favor of the ruling and all those opposed to the ruling, is that correct?
My system ready.
Okay, thank you.
So all those in favor, I will ask individually, those in favor of the ruling of the mayor. Councillor Ribbiak? In favor of the ruling or opposed to the ruling?
In favor.
Councillor King?
In favor.
Councillor Durley?
Opposed.
Councillor Papp?
Opposed.
Councillor Akersey?
Opposed.
Councillor Junkin?
Opposed.
The ruling is overruled, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. So Councillor Kersey would like to make an amendment to the agenda to add under new business an item to discuss the naming of E.W. Farr School by the District School Board of Niagara, or the renaming of E.W. Farr School. Is there I guess this is committee, so we don't need a seconder. So all those in favor of that amendment? All those opposed to the amendment? The amendment carries. Thank you. Any other changes to the agenda? I will call the question on the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? That amended agenda carries. Thank you. And that was moved by Councillor Junkin and amended by Councillor Kersey. Thank you. Next on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Do any members have any conflicts of interest that they need to disclose? Can it be so noted that there are no conflicts? Now we move to Community Planning and Development. We have one report, and that is regarding the Cow report. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey. The Committee of the Whole receives the May 2016 Planning and Development Services Report for information. Questions, comments? Councillor Ribbiak.
I have two with regard to the Planning and Development Report. The first has to do with, I'm just looking for it here, the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw. I quote from the report, "It is anticipated that a draft of the bylaw will be available in mid-May, following which a draft of the bylaw will be presented to council and public consultation will commence in June." I wonder if that report needs to be updated, and if so, to what? And how quickly can we get it? I understand.
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My understanding that it would be, it should have been coming last month. I'll have to get the director to send an update to council with regards to this. I'm not sure of the status.
And the community, so maybe that can be amended or discussed as part of the fallout of this report at council next meeting.
Yes, or the director could just send an email to council with an update, however you'd like to do it.
Councillor?
It would be useful to know, of course, what the update is, but I think at some point we really need to talk about this and get something firm in our minds as to what the plan is with regard to the comprehensive zoning bylaw. We've been dealing with this now for, I'm guessing, 4 years or thereabouts, since we first talked about the built form zoning and the changes that were going to happen, and I think we were all excited by that, and I'm still looking forward to it. So I'd really like the opportunity to hear more in depth the plan of how we're going to get there from here.
Okay, thank you. Mr. CEO?
Yeah, I'll have the director update that at the council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. My other point is with regard to the North Pelham drain.
Anyone else on the
Oh, sorry.
comprehensive zoning bylaw? Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
My other question is with regard to the North Pelham drain. And I think this report has remained as it is for the last number of reports. It continues to say that a report on the final design will be issued shortly. Any indication of whether we're any closer to the end or just further from the beginning?
Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'd have to consult with the director on that. I don't have an answer for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on that? Anyone else on any other issues on the planning report? I do want to say very pleased to see the building permits. Staff had mentioned to me, it was the CBO, the chief building official, had said that the permits are way up, and they are for May year over year for 2016, and certainly the number, 42 issued within those 10 days, and the average is 5 days. So kudos to staff for that. And then as well, the value of construction is up by $3.1 million over last year. So lots of building activity going on in the town. So important to mention that. And also pleased to see something in terms of the East Fenwick coming to council in July. So very pleased to see that. Anyone else on any of the items in the director's report? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried, and we look forward to that information coming to council at our next meeting. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey that the Corporate Services Department report on the 2016 first quarter revenue and expenditure statement be received for information. Questions or comments? Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One question. I note that when we look at the capital projects that were budgeted, there are many that have not been initiated.
I think you're on the
others-
wrong one.
Am I
This is
on the
the
wrong
first
one?
quarter
Oh, I'm sorry.
revenue and
Oh, sorry.
expenditure
Thank you.
statements
Yep,
operating.
You're right. I was dealing with the whole thing.
I'll turn to you when we get to the next one.
Yeah, no problem.
Ready for calling the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. It's been moved by Councillor Juncker, the Corporate Services Department report of the 2015 Building Department year-end results be received for information. The capital project is next, Councillor Kersey. So anything on the building Department. Madam Treasurer, just, what was my question here? The town did put some money into, can you just explain this transfer from operating piece on, I don't know what page it is,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the building department is a self-sustaining department, so when there's a shortfall in their budget, they must transfer money in from the reserve, so that's the transfer from from the operating. And then, sorry, it shouldn't say town operating, it should be building department operating. So it would transfer from its own reserve to fund the deficit for that year. So in 2015, there was a deficit of 13,500.
Thank you. So should that really be from building department reserve, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so perhaps that can be changed so
Yeah.
that when it comes to council, that it's clear. Any other questions on the building department report? I guess it doesn't leave a lot in the reserve, but perhaps with the building permits that are coming in, there will be some in there.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Any other changes? So I'm going to call the question as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. Really corrected. It's been moved by Councilor Durley that the Corporate Services Department Report 2016 First Quarter Capital Project Update be received for information. Councilor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I've noticed here when I look at these capital projects is that there's a significant number that have not been initiated yet and another significant number that are still in their design stages. I wonder if we are anticipating that a significant number of these projects will not be completed this year and deferred over for next year, or do we still expect that we'll be able to go to tender and get them out there and get it done?
Madam Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this report is as of March 31st. It's just delayed coming because of the audit, and we were trying to get it on the last agenda, but it just didn't make it. So at March 31st, that's where these projects stood. Many of them have now been gone out to tender phase, or the design has been completed. We did have discussions with the other directors. Everybody's still on target to meet the projects for this year, but certainly in the next, the June update to council, that'll come in July or August, we'll provide more clarification on any projects that might be delayed.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any others? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. It's been moved by Councilor Durley that the Corporate Services Department report on 2015 council and board remuneration be received for information. Questions, comments? And that includes committee adjustment. Calling the question, all those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. It's been moved by Councilor Junkin. The committee received the May 2016 Corporate Services Monthly Report for information. Questions or comments on the director's report? Oh, I'm sorry,
Just
Councilor
the tender
Durley.
report, Mr. Chair?
It does include the tender, yes. Go ahead, Councilor.
I have a little question about bid 2016 PW 30, purchase of new riding lawn tractor. There are two prices there, one substantially higher than the other, and that seems to be the one that was awarded. Now, obviously, there's a reason for it. I'm just curious as to know why the higher got the contract.
Who can answer that? Ms. Clemencio?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I feel that one, we had several provisional items in it. Weren't quite sure how the pricing was gonna come out. There was a cab and a blade for snow, for sidewalk plow. So it had some additional items that we included in the tender, and gives us the ability to pick and choose those provisional items afterwards, depending on how the pricing comes in. So the one bidder didn't include pricing for all the provisionals, and the way these are presented, it's the sum of all the prices that are filled in that tender, whether those provisional items are bid on or not, or included or not, it's just a sum. So it's not always exactly how the final choice was based, because we are picking and choosing on those provisional items afterwards.
So in fact, the lowest bid did not include everything that was in the tender.
Correct.
Thank you.
And wasn't comparable to the other.
Thank you.
So it was the most competitive one, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Councillor Kersey?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I note that there's a couple of items here where bids that were submitted were not disclosed. Is there a reason for that, or is it something that needs to be discussed in camera that can't be discussed here? Specifically, for example, street cleaning program, bridge and culvert inspection program.
Madam Treasurer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, there should be no reason why they're not being disclosed unless they're unofficial results at this time. So it could be that they're unofficial. I will confirm with the tender pack, the e-procurement software individuals and understand why that bid is not, but everything's public as soon as it ends, so they should be appearing here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Engineering services designed for Highland Avenue, does this mean that Highland can get done? Or will we find out once they start working?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is planned to go to construction in August, September. So the design is nearly complete, doing utilities and approvals now, and construction underway in the late summer, early fall.
Okay, thank you. Question about the concrete curb and sidewalk construction program. I know this was something that we deferred from last year. The pricing, now this says part one here. I was just looking for perhaps one of those projects that was under budget. Is that one of them? We often see projects that are under budget. It'd be helpful to have perhaps the budgeted amount here, Madam Treasurer, next time this is reported, so that we can circle those, as Councillor Durley indicated, if they are under budget.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that one wouldn't necessarily be a good example. We ended up having to take a little bit, several $1,000s out of the second phase of that plan
Okay.
for the later in the year. But road base and surface repair would be a good example. Part one, we had 2 bids on that one, and the budget for that project is $160,000. So by going with the lowest bidder, we are experiencing a savings there from $112,600 to $160,000.
Okay, good, thank you. Anything else to the Treasurer's report?
I'm sorry.
Treasurer?
Wanted to clarify, this report is directly submitted from the e-procurement software. So there's no avenue to put a budget dollar in there beside the bid amounts that are reported here. So otherwise we'd have to create an Excel spreadsheet outside of this. So the bid only allows for the bidders to go in and put their bids in, and then that comes up with the amounts. But obviously, if they're under budget or over budget, they would have to come back to council, and they would not show up on here because they would not be awarded yet.
Okay, well, I guess it'll come in the capital
That's correct.
report.
Yeah.
So that's how we receive it. Okay, thank you. Anything further to the director's report? I do want to say, where is it here? About the staffing. So there's some great education that's occurring with staffing, so congratulations. And also, unfortunately, we are losing a longtime employee, Elaine Ronald, who's done just a tremendous job, and we look forward to that. I think the party is something like a final tax installment party or something like that for her, because she's the tax clerk and has served here for since 1979. So congratulations officially to Elaine Ronald, and thank you very much for your many years of dedicated service. Nothing further. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. It's been moved by Councillor King that the Committee of the Whole receive the May 2016 Fire Services Report for information. Questions, comments to the Chief? Councillor Pat?
Very quickly through you to the chief. The vandalism that you've noticed increasing, where has that been? Is it in one park or all across the board?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had it throughout most of the parks. few isolated outside ones, but most of it is Harold Black Park.
Harold Black, I was just gonna say, because I walk my dog there, it's increased, definitely.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Pap?
On another matter?
Go ahead.
I just
Anyone
wanted to
else?
commend the chief for filling us in on Protective Direction 36. That's a very interesting that the Transport Canada has reissued that information that they'll be sharing or could possibly share with us as far as transportation of dangerous goods. I'm happy they have obviously listened to us.
Thank you.
We think it's worthwhile?
Chief?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the protective directives, the design of them is for, as far as the CEMC,
you.
the Emergency Management Coordinator, it's post-information. The information is not available to us prior to shipping or during shipping. It's only, and the design for, there's a couple different things, but for me, as far as the Emergency Management Coordinator, is for us to use it as a tool to evaluate our risk assessments, our high risk, and to train and to develop programs or models that would handle unfortunate, releases or spills or disasters. Also helps our public works department with
Right.
level crossings and
Right.
road construction, stuff like that, but it's something that's after the fact. It's very
Okay, well, that explains it then.
critical information, yeah.
Where I got confused, Mr. Mayor, was that public information requiring rail carriers to share information that could be disclosed publicly.
Right.
Either
Just
it's
to that.
public or it isn't.
yeah.
I don't want to debate it tonight, but I mean, if stuff is going down our active rail line, I know you need to know that ahead of time, if they're in fact considering, but I don't know what they mean by public information, but they're not going to, they're going to tell the town of Pelham that we're carrying radioactive, or they're not going to advise you on that. They're not going to say anything about that. Okay.
I did have a discussion with the transportation, rail safety, et cetera. They said that the existing protocol ends this year and that this is a renewal. So,
Yeah, this,
but my understanding from speaking to them is that you would actually be notified ahead of time. So anyways, I have some information which I can pass along.
okay, I'd like to,
Monitor. It's not something for the public necessarily. So, thank
No.
you. Anything else on the fire services report? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Been moved by Councilor Ribbiak. The Committee of the Whole received the May 2016 Human Resources Department report for information. Questions, comments? Councilor Pap?
well, I commend the Director of Human Resources. I could hardly wait to see the results of your market survey with other municipalities.
Yeah.
I'm actually,
Yeah.
quite frankly, that's going to be really interesting.
If they cooperate.
If they cooperate, right? They don't have to necessarily give it to us, right?
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, that is why we are actually sending out the invitations through our CAO to the other CAOs, because certainly that'll
It's gonna
lead
be
some weight
interesting.
when it comes from the top down, and hopefully we'll get great participation from that.
I just, prior to leaving overseas, I talked the issue came up, part of recruiting, retention, succession planning of capable candidates for positions of CAO. And there seems to be, there's a huge gap, and part of it is compensation, part of it is, so I'll be very fascinated. I think all of us will be fascinated to see the results.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
Anything else to the Director's report? There's all kinds of other great stuff in there in terms of the Green Shield
Green Shield
training and
stuff,
other
yeah.
training,
Yeah,
so
that's really good.
thank you very much. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Moved by Councilor Junkin that correspondence from D. Howell dated May 28, 2016 regarding speeding on Pancake Lane be received and referred to staff for report. I alluded to this earlier this evening. Any questions or comments? Councilor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we discussed at our council meeting, there are several answers or several approaches to traffic calming, and one was tried here years ago and it doesn't work. During my campaign, I knocked on doors in that area, and it was reported that one resident who is disabled in a wheelchair was clipped by a car going by there. And certainly that is, with the hilly part of it, it is a very strategic area to do some traffic calming. So we need to take a very, very close look at this and come up with something that's going to calm traffic down there, because it's dangerous. The road is very narrow and there's no shoulders, and somebody's going to get hurt, and definitely we need to take some action. So use all the tools we can, but let's get something done as quickly as we can, and perhaps get, again, the neighbors involved. There was a petition, and there was neighbors that were involved in bringing this forward, and a big petition signed. I think we need perhaps to get a handful of people again, through Mr. Howell, perhaps get 2 or 3 people that can sit down with us, and we could go over how might we just to see what can be done. But definitely, other areas in town need it as well, but this one, I think, needs serious attention, and that's, I think, goes without saying. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess the question is, in terms of the report, will that be part of the report that staff will be bringing back, Madam Director? Sitting down with those folks that were involved before?
Mr. Mayor, it can be, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Something to consider, I think. Councillor Rivak, Councillor King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I read the letter, and I agree with everything that's been said. The note that I put on top of the letter is what's the motion? Are we planning a follow-up action with respect to this specifically, or is this just for information?
Yeah, the motion is to refer to staff for report.
Yeah, okay, that helps. I don't have the motion in front of me, so.
Thank you. Councillor King?
If I may, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to comment that this is a very similar situation to the Hay Street North situation. Same thing, been going on for years, been through this committee, gone to that committee, gone to staff, blah, blah, blah. So I'll be very interested in receiving the report on this one and seeing what action is going to be taken, because it is time that action needs to be taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. We look forward to that discussion and that report. Obviously, it's of a concern to members of the community and to council. It's been moved by Councillor Ribbiak. The Committee of the Whole received the Beautification Committee correspondence and report, and that committee recommended council approve a budget and additional resources to support the events or projects that council agrees are most suited to the town of Pelham. Councillor Ribbiak,
Yes.
you're the member on that committee. Why
I
don't you
am.
fill us in a little?
I am, and I'm referring specifically now to the letter, if I can just find it. We're going to get used to the system yet.
You already have it here.
Okay, so the letter is the one that contains within it suggestions by the Beautification Committee with respect to initiatives that were provided to it within the terms of reference, and which largely came out of the defunct, I guess, for want of a better word, Communities in Bloom Committee. And the committee wrestled with the issue of how to provide the services that the town had received previously through town resources, which were no longer available, and at the same time provide to council advice as to how to accomplish these things on a sustainable basis going forward. And the letter that you will read in front of you contains within it some suggestions with respect to how to do it, but I think largely the hope is that staff will take a good look at that letter and come back with recommendations for what can go into the budget for next year and going forward. I don't think that there's anything in this letter, and the Director of Public Works may correct me on this, but I don't think there's anything in the letter that requires resources for activity This year, immediately, the season is pretty much gone for things like the Trillium Awards for Gardens or Garden Tour. The resources weren't there available to get those things done in 2016, but these are things that the Beautification Committee suggests are important to the town and need to go on. There are resources required. Budget and hours are indicated to an extent within this letter. Obviously, this needs to be looked at, and we need to make a decision in the budgeting process for how to continue with these going on. So that's what that letter is about. I think the director may have some comments that could expand on that, but I think essentially that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Others to the motion, Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a little bit confused when I read the staff report with respect to this. Throughout the report, the commentary is we don't have enough staff, we don't have the money, et cetera, to continue with some of the initiatives that went back to the communities in bloom. And then at the end, there was a recommendation to supply staff and supply the money for 2017, but we're still going to be faced with the staffing issues. We can throw money at the problem, but if we don't have staff to take the lead on these projects, whether it's just to sit on a committee, you'd need a working committee to run some of these events, whether it's through the rec or through Public Works or what have you. I don't know how we can reconcile those things. So I'd like to hear from the director with respect to that, because I think that's a pretty big decision-making point. If we don't have the staff to lead the charge, then we have to put it out to volunteer committees entirely.
Mr. CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps this can come back to the P&P agenda with some additional information, including the terms of reference for the committee, et cetera, that council would not have that before them this evening. So I might make that recommendation to council.
Thank you. And additional information in terms of answering Councillor Kersey's question of staffing and resources. Councillor, are you okay with that?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that, Mr. Mayor. I think the one strong advisory role that they played is commenting on the engineering design criteria. I mean, that's really what was envisioned, I think, as an advisory committee, is to look at the various processes and make suggestions. I suppose the others are recommendations are advisory in some context, but I don't think they were put there to continue the Communities in Bloom initiative. I think it was an entirely different vision that was encased there. It just happened to be that it was, some of the members were rolled over.
Yes, and I think also, I believe is this the first time that we've seen their strategic plan? No, we did approve the strategic plan?
We had it earlier.
Okay. It just seemed, when you look at it and the wording of the strategic plan, it didn't see how it matched. So what I propose is that we agree with the CAO that we do refer this to P&P and maybe just roll up our sleeves and have a little bit more of a discussion to that. Councilor Rybak, will you make that?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I will make that motion and hopefully it will pass. I just wanted to comment that Councillor Kersey has really hit the issue directly on the head. There were a set of expectations that I think the Beautification Committee had, but found very quickly that the resources were not there. And their advice is, if we want to continue with some of these, we're going to have to come up with the resources. So you're right on point. That's a serious discussion to have, because those resources are not just dollars, but they're a lot of hours, which translates, of course, ultimately into having to hire people. So that is a discussion I look forward to in PNP, and I'm sure the Beautification Committee will appreciate knowing that we understand the challenge that they had on their hands in trying to tackle those issues.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is that we refer it to priorities and planning with additional information, the terms of reference and information regarding staffing, as Councillor Kersey asked for. I'm going to call the question. Councillor Durley, you're looking
Thank you,
for
Mr.
additional
Mayor. I
information?
think the important thing to remember here is the word advisory. some of the strategic plan is, to me, hinting at some actions, and I think the actions need to be taken by staff. The advice to staff may help to make some decisions differently, or alter some decisions, or do some things in a particular way, but I think the action part of it needs to stay with staff, and the advisory part needs to come from this committee.
Thank you. That's not necessarily in order with the amendment, which is to defer, so I'm going to call the question to, or refer, sorry, to P&P, and Councillor Durley can say that again. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That referral is carried. Thank you. It has been moved by Councillor Kersey that Committee of the Whole receive the Public Works report regarding the budget need for the Emerald Ash Tree Removal 2016. The Committee of the Whole recommends the Council approve the $75,000 budget request. Councillor Durley?
That wasn't in the original budget request, was it, the 16? I tried to look at the operating budget and the capital budget, I didn't see anything.
No, this is an additional
In
request.
addition to, okay.
Recommends the Council approve an additional. Is that correct? Is that what the, Madam Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, there's no 2016 budget allocation for ash removal.
Just wondering where that money's gonna come from.
It will come from the Parks Reserve funding for it.
Councillor Durley, anything further?
Yeah, so that doesn't put a strain on any other project, right?
So there are funds to cover that, Madam Treasurer?
There are funds, but again, as discussed earlier, we'll watch all the projects throughout the year. When these projects come up that are not known in the budget, then we obviously will have to alter if necessary at the end of the year, depending on the overages and underages of some of the projects that are ongoing. So we will monitor it throughout the year.
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Kersey?
I'm a little bit perplexed on how this didn't get into the budget for 2016, in that when we approved the additional funds in 2015, we were given given an update that said that for the next 4 or 5 years, there'd be $75,000 per year required in each of the years. And I guess I missed it myself. I had just assumed that 75,000 was in there because we had been given an information report when we approved the 2015 report.
Madam Treasurer?
The request, totally missed it with the report that came in when we were in the prospect of doing the capital budget. This would be put onto the capital budget, and it was already completed at the time we were reminded to put it into the operating. It is not an operating expense because these are one-offs. They're not going to last in perpetuity, so we don't want to inflate the budget by $75,000 and charge the ratepayers for something that is going to end. So as it was too late, I referred to the CAO, and we decided that it needed to come as a special report, and then it would be involved in the 2017 capital budget and 2018 to finish off the program.
Anything further?
I don't think we have any alternative.
That'd be done.
Councillor Junkin?
Just a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Public Works. Do we work in unison with Ontario Hydro? Because I see in my end of the town, Ontario Hydro is doing their own ash tree removal, or perhaps not specifically ash tree, but dead trees. And I believe they're going to do the whole town along hydro lines. Do you guys communicate at all on that, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we communicate simply to talk about what we're doing, but our scope of work is entirely different. So
Okay.
they let us know in advance. I think I did forward it out to council as well. The work they're looking at, sight lines and utility safety.
Yes.
And our work is not necessarily coordinated, but we do correspond with each other.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So they must take a lot, if there's hydro lines along the side of a rural road, they must go and do a pretty good job of cleaning that up, so we wouldn't have to send our own crew, or not so much?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not so much, because their scope of work is about the utility and the protection,
Okay,
where ours is about removing the entire tree.
okay.
So there can be correspondence. They did communicate directly with our arborist about the planned work, and should they come across an issue that is further reaching than their work. We've had some great feedback that they've been in touch with residents as they go and informing what they're doing, but the scopes of work are quite different.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? So I'm going to say that it was amended just for clarity, that it approve an additional $75,000 budget request. So it's been moved by Councillor Kersey that we receive it and do that. Are you ready for calling the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And with knowledge that will come from the Parks Reserve Fund. The next item has been moved by Councillor Durley that the Public Works and Utilities Department report for endorsement of the drinking water quality management operational plan be received. The committee of the whole recommends that council approve the endorsement of the plan and that the Public Works and Utilities Department report be received, and the committee of the whole recommends that council approve the drinking water quality management system policy. Madam Director, anything to add to, well, I guess I'll see if council colleagues, you read the report. Is there anything further, any questions you have? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. We'll save the director her voice. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Junkin that the Public Works and Utilities Department report for Sulphur Spring Drive update be received for information. Obviously, we're not going to do any trees on Sulphur Spring Drive if we don't own it, so I presume you'll wait until that, Madam Chair, or Madam Director. Anything further to the report, receiving for information, looking at who owns the road, etc. And we'll look forward to additional information. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor King. The committee received the May 2016 Public Works and Utilities Report for information. Questions, comments to the director's report? Madam Director, can you just, I'm confused about the LED here. It says it's in the 20-year capital forecast, currently planned for 2-year implementation, but what's this about the estimate? Are you anticipating that will change, I guess is the question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, as energy costs have changed, and the incentives have changed. So the payback, what I'm hearing is that municipalities are actually experiencing a payback that is less than what they were, more favorable than what they were originally anticipating. So we would want to.
So the payback period is less, the revenue is greater, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the return on investment improves. So I just wanted to note that this was cited based on that January 2015 report, 836,000 capital, and it was anticipated to 400 and 436 to spread it out, and it was put into a 20-year in 2018.
Okay, thank you. I think it's something that's been talked about at the holding company for hydro and the distribution company, that other municipalities are doing this and are seeing those savings. So I think it's something definitely that we should look at, as we talked earlier about the rising rates of the utilities, especially in the Ontario hydro jurisdiction, where a lot of our lights are, and as well in the NPI area. But so maybe it's something that we should think about as we approach the 2017 budget, just to see where it fits in. Anyways, thank you for the information. The treasurer isn't pleased about that, but that's fine. Anything further on the director's report, Councillor Rubiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been looking, but I haven't been able to find an item, so it may be a question to the director that is actually not on the report, and that's with regard to the new street lights in downtown Fenwick. I think I was following some emails on a discussion of what had happened to some of the globes, lights not working, globes left behind. I don't know whether you could just give us through you, Mr. Mayor, an update on that issue.
Mr. Mayor, Just to clarify, you're referring to the streetlights or the pedestrian gas lamps?
Gas lamps.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so the gas lamps, we've had some issues with, we're suspecting vandalism, and we've discovered that the supplier of the replacement parts was in Quebec and since stopped carrying these parts, and then we had to source them out to the US. This is all being done through our gas contractor, through the contractor who did the Fenwick revitalization. So we, at the first instance, ordered one set of replacement parts to fix the lamp that was broken, and we ordered 2 sets when we learned of this delay for inventory, so that we wouldn't have such a delay with them being off. And in that span of time waiting for the parts, 2 more lamps were broken, and so now we're using our inventory, so we've ordered some more. But the contractor is looking into some alternative replacements, some heavier duty plexiglass type globes that might be more resistant to vandalism. That's our plan.
Thank you, Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, I guess that raises a couple of questions. One, of course, I think you've answered, which is that we're looking for a different system to replace because clearly what we originally put up there is no longer available. But the second question is the problem of the vandalism. Have we made anything and taken any steps to see whether we can end that vandalism? I don't know, closed circuit television or whatever to find out who's doing it. Is this a continuing problem? It sounds like it's going to be.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we met the chief and bylaw officers and several staff in my group to talk about what's happening and what we're spending and the time spent in doing the repairs and how to stop it from happening, or at least how to catch who's doing it. It seems to be 2 different plans of action. So we immediately made some adjustments with the bylaw officer's schedule so that the student hired for the summer would flex his hours, work a later shift, and have some more presence in the parks after hours. Unexpected, not a planned routine, to see whether we could try to curb some of that activity. We brought in our IT specialist to look at getting some quotes on closed circuit television. We had some challenges in how we would do that, stop them from vandalizing the cameras themselves. We talked about closing the washrooms, so we've been brainstorming and talked about maybe even a little mini how might we to figure out where to go from here. But for now, we're starting to at least poll or tally the costs to keep track of what we're spending on doing these reports.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate that update. I looked for it in the report, and I didn't see it there, and I was hoping that it hadn't dropped off the table. I didn't think it had, and I'm glad it hasn't. And I hope that we can bring an end to it even more than finding effective and cost-effective replacements.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further on any items in the Public Works Department? Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. It's been moved by Councilor Gurley that the Recreation, Culture, and Wellness Department report for community partnership with the District School Board of Niagara regarding the future use of facilities pertaining to the EW for our school be received. The Committee of the Whole recommends that Council authorize the Mayor Clerk to enter into a memorandum of understanding to negotiate an appropriate agreement with the DSBN. Questions or comments? So this is for the potential use of the park and behind EWFR. Are we ready for calling the question? Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report indicates there's some opportunity for some facility sharing, using our property for the soccer field and town access to facilities. And I just wanted to get some clarification as to what that meant. Does that mean that we as a town, staff, for example, have the opportunity to have access to some of those facilities, or does it mean that residents have some greater ability to access those rooms? What is envisioned in that?
Okay, before we get that answer, I need I have a motion from Councillor Durley that the remainder of the business listed on the agenda for this meeting continue to be considered until all matters have been concluded or until a set time of 10:30 PM, whichever occurs first. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Ms. Van Ravensway.
Mr. Mayor, we would be negotiating a shared facilities, whereas the municipality would receive perhaps free use of the school, whereas any resident could apply to the Board of Education for any of the schools, where if I were to run programs in one of the schools, I would be paying a higher rate than any of the other associations. So that is of interest to our department, to be able to access that facility perhaps free of charge. And in turn, they would be developing a soccer field that would lay a quarter of it, I would say, on their property, and it would 3/4 onto Cherry Ridge Park.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be supporting this, but I would hope that in dealing with the school board on this, that we really get something of some use to us, and in particular, some greater access for residents. It's not easy. It's not as easy as people might think to get, for residents to get access to facilities within the school board. They really don't like it, and they make it a little bit officious and difficult. And if it could negotiate into this some easier pathway into the DSBA, that would certainly be useful.
Okay, thank you.
My comments.
Anything further? I guess my question would be in terms of having gone through the creation of that park, and it was quite the community consultation. I don't know if it'd be included in this as part of the negotiation, but we would probably want to continue to have some sort of community consultation in terms of how that park gets remade to accommodate the request. Ms. Van Ravensway, any thoughts on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll definitely, in cooperation with the Board of Education, we'll work with them to hold a community a meeting to inform them of the intentions and get their input.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. We look forward to those discussions. Thank you. It's been moved by Councilor Kersey, the Committee of the Whole receive the Recreation, Culture, and Wellness Department report for information. Any questions or comments to that? Going to call the question? Oh, I guess, any news on Old Pelham Town Hall, Cenotaph restoration?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Are you talking about the dedication or the restoration? The tenders have come in for the landscaping, and we will be proceeding, as well as all aspects of the project. Although in speaking with the committee, actually today, we will be postponing the dedication from June the 24th to sometime in September, when there are more residents and associations that would be involved in such a dedication that are available as well.
Thank you. Anything further? Nice to see the ridership up in May. Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. That was the ridership for Pelham Transit. It's been moved by Councilor Kersey, the Committee of the Whole received the May 2016 Clerks Committee of the Whole report, and that committee recommended council cancel the regular meetings of council scheduled for Monday, July 4th, 2016, and Tuesday, August 2nd, 2016, and the Committee of the Whole meeting scheduled for those dates. Questions or comments?
I'm going to celebrate July 4th from now on.
Are you ready for calling the question? Or is there any questions or comments first to the report and then to the motion? All right, there aren't. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. It's been moved by Councillor King that the Committee of the Whole receive the April 2016, that should be May, 2016 Chief Administrative Officer's Report for information. Questions or comments? Councillor Papp?
30 seconds. At some point over the next few weeks, as we prepare budgets at a higher level, I'd like us to have a full discussion about staffing requirements in the town. And I just defer to the, reading some of the reports tonight. I didn't want to bring that up, but I think there are areas I think we're starting to feel the pressure of us being able to deliver service. And it may be worthwhile to discuss that again
Okay.
as part of our budget considerations.
Thank you. So
You know
I'll
where
ask-
I'm going
yeah.
with that, just general? Because
Yeah,
I've seen we're short here, can't do this, can't do that. I'm not going to elaborate, just I think we need that discussion. What do we need to deploy?
I think that was something that was discussed at our last, I guess in January, when some of the staff
Yes, we
made some
did.
presentations to
Yeah, we
council.
did, and I want to bring it
And
back.
I'll ask the clerk to take note of that and work together with staff in terms of having an opportunity to have that discussion.
Yeah, we need to talk about that. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That was my only comment.
All right, thank you. Any others to the CAO's report? I guess two items. The first is just an update on the Maple Acre Library. CO has indicated about the demolition, and that is commencing. We did have a committee meeting this afternoon, and it's indicated that they'll start mobilizing on the site in the middle of June, and so in a couple of weeks. And also they want to do some sort of ceremony, demolition ceremony, on the 20th of June. So save the date. We want to save that piece that says fire hall or fire station for sure, and kind of kick things off. It's either a groundbreaking or a window smashing or whatever it is, but something on the 20th of June for that. So put that down in your calendars. And then, Mr. CAO, can you just provide some information regarding the oversight committee in terms of reference? And I know you gave a separate letter here to council. Just verbally fill us in a little bit, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council had asked for the terms of reference for the oversight committee. I indicated at the last meeting that I should be able to have that for June 6th. I have drafted the terms of reference. However, there is a couple of things that I need before I'm comfortable in bringing them to council, particularly the defined role of bulk construction of Petroff. We were supposed to have legal agreements done already. Unfortunately, we didn't receive those, so I was unable to. What I was trying to do was take the content around the roles and responsibilities in the contract and mirror that in the terms of reference for full clarity. And because I didn't have that information, I just simply was not comfortable reading that to council, even in draft form. So I will be bringing the draft terms of reference for the June 20th meeting once I have that information. The secondary issue is that it's actually worked out for me okay, because I do have a couple of experts I would like to get their feedback on the draft before bringing it to council to make sure that I haven't missed anything significant.
Thank you. So will that come to council or to committee, Mr. CAO?
Whatever the pleasure of council is on that, it doesn't matter to me. I could do either one.
Yeah, I think we'll take it directly to council would be, okay.
Okay.
All right. Anything further on that questions from council? Okay. Anything further on the CAO's report? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. We have an item of new business that Councillor Kersey added. Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I bring this forward in response to concerns that were expressed to me by quite a number of members of our community. They were led to believe during the open houses that were held in Fenwick by the district school board that typically the school board would not change the name of a school where it was significant to the community and had some value to the community. And the concerns that have been expressed to me are that E.W. Farr was a very well-respected individual in the community, and as such had some historic value to having his name on there and recognized on that particular school. I bring it forward realizing full well that we have no jurisdiction in terms of demanding that the school board change it. I wanted to bring it forward to see if council had any appetite in writing a letter explaining the historic significance of Mr. Farr and requesting them to give further consideration to changing their name. That was all that I wanted to put forward, Mr. Mayor. If there is no appetite for that, and if there is no feeling that there's any historic value in Mr. Farr's name and maintaining that name on the school, then so be it. But at least we've had a discussion on behalf of our citizenry.
Thank you, Councillor. Any others? Councillor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo those statements. There is certainly a heritage value in the fact of the contributions that Mr. Farr made to this community. The other name, Wellington Heights, was an idea. It never ever did happen. So it's a concept, and I feel naming something after a concept is not right when you do have something tangible, some real contribution that was made by an individual in this community. So I feel that a letter, although we don't have the jurisdiction to change any names, a letter in support of keeping the name E.W. Farr to maintain heritage value within the Fenwick area is, to me, a very important issue.
Thank you. Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was, first of all, I agree as Councillor Christie does, that we don't have the power to demand anything, but certainly as a resident of Pelham, I see value in retaining the name. I'm assuming that Councillor Christie feels that in this motion, one of the things we ought to do is formally decide whether we'd like to keep it that, and maybe express some view to the school board that they never asked us, that I can recall. I don't think we ever received a request from the school board saying, and how do you feel about it? I would have thought that they might have, even though we don't have the power to do anything. So those are things that I think might be mentioned in the letter that's put together. So one of the things that I would propose is that we actually vote on it. Would we like to keep it or would we not?
Thank you. Others? I'd like to comment on this. When I heard about this, and some members of the community have reached out to me, I went and reached out to a member of the board and asked for additional information. It's quite interesting, the comment about the school doesn't usually reconsider the name. I think it is their policy to do so, to look at the names whenever there's a change of schools. And the interesting thing that they found was they undertook I wrote you an email earlier tonight when this came up and it was added, it says undertook a surgery, but it was meant survey, and 250 people responded and 63% wanted a different name. So perhaps that's why, or one of the reasons why they considered changing the name. The second, I think, important piece of information that I found out that wasn't included anywhere was that the school board did recognize that the name E.W. Farr as an educator is a very, very important historic figure in our community, and they're proposing that the Learning Commons, or the library of E.W. Farr School, be called the E.W. Farr Learning Commons, so that the name would be retained. I guess the reason I did rule as I did, and I appreciate council's ruling to the contrary and wanting to have the discussion. I am concerned about others, commenting on what we do here, and sometimes without having all of the information. So I think it's really, really important for council to have all of the information. What I would recommend, instead of saying this council could, I think, say, you know what, keep the name. What I would recommend, with all due respect to members of council, and all due respect to the members of the board, something like saying, we have heard some feedback on the name, some negative feedback, we can even say that, and that we would respectfully ask the district school board trustees to reconsider the name and leave it at that. Again, it's, I think some sort of motion like that would respect each of the various jurisdictions, would respect what we do as listening to members of the community, but would also not necessarily say we want it to be called the, whatever it is, school. So I would recommend that to council, that if we do want to dip an oar in the water, that it would be that we simply ask the board that they reconsider the name because of some feedback that we've received from the community, and leave it at that. Council can do what it wants, but that would be my recommendation. So, Councillor Kersey, do you want to make a motion? You've heard from council colleagues, or are there other council colleagues that would like to speak? Councillor Junkin?
Yes, I would just like to say that I support what you have just said. Shows that, yes, we realize we have no standing in this, but at the same time, we have heard from our constituents, and we would like to convey that feeling to them. And I think a suggestion as opposed to an all-out order is definitely the way to go. So I suggest what your recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Others? Councillor Papp?
Just quickly, I agree with your suggestion, and also Councillor Kersey. We have a right and responsibility to speak on behalf of our community. And I think whether it's within our jurisdiction or not, and I'll only use this example, you know what's happening south here. Our communities have no business in healthcare, but they're speaking out about their hospitals. They have no control over it, that's a fact, and they realize that. But so if things happen here, then we know that our residents have the historic significance, they've contributed, and I'm thinking also of Glen A. Green. I mean, if those of you know them, if they decide to demolish that school, I think there'd be an uproar if they changed that name, because there's been significant contributions. So I think in the best interest, as you suggest diplomatically, we write to the school board and the board of trustees and suggest maybe reconsideration, or maybe some, with understanding fully that they have the final shot. The flip side is, remember, they rebuilt the school in East Welland. They built a brand new school, and they took the name, I think, John, was called Matthews School.
Matthews, yeah.
Right, and they changed it totally to, and most people didn't, yeah, they Trillium or whatever they want. But there was very little consultation, but the fact that everybody got a new school, nobody really paid much attention to the name. But Matthews, in fact, had some historical significance, so I highly, I'm full agreement with you. Let's do that. There'll be other occasions we'll still do that. And I see that as a moral responsibility.
Thank you very much. Councillor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree that letter, but that letter should contain the word heritage value, recognizing the contribution this educator gave to the town of Pelham and to the village of Fenwick.
Thank you, Councillor King.
I'm in agreement with the letter because I think it's a happy balance. It does represent the residents, and provides them with information, further background information or historical information that they may not otherwise have received.
Thank you. Councillor Kersey?
I'm quite happy with that suggestion, Mr. Mayor, that you've put forward. I would go even further and invite the school board to make a presentation to council so that they, if in fact they stay with Wellington Heights, they could bring out the fact that the EWFR name would be on the Learning Commons. It would help get all that information out in the public, and it may help to quell some of the concerns that are out there as well. So I fully endorse what you put forward. I think that's a very good solution. We don't have to hit them over the head with a stick. We can be diplomatic.
Okay, thank you. So who wants to put forward that motion? Okay, Councillor Kersey, so that you, the motion, I don't know how I said it, but Madam Clerk has it here. So that I think what I heard was, Councillor, that there would be a letter sent on behalf of council. Madam Clerk?
I have to find it in my notes.
Saying that, right here, that we have heard some negative feedback on the name change, that folks have suggested that it's a historic educator, it's extremely important to our community, and that we would respectfully ask that the board reconsider the naming. of the school. And you are more than welcome to come to council and make a presentation about the naming process, et cetera. Okay?
So if it's just a motion to prepare a letter to the school board, I can pull from the notes.
Okay. So is that a motion to send us a letter to the school board using the information that we just spoke about and asking them to reconsider the name?
Yep.
Okay, so it has been moved by Councillor Kersey. Any further discussion? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. It has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak that this regular meeting of Committee of the Whole be adjourned until the next regular committee meeting scheduled for June 20th, 2016, unless sooner called by the mayor. All those in favor? Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. What do we do about the council?